Hello, my dear friends, and welcome to my channel. My name is Barbara, and today we're going to be looking at the 11th house. So super excited to be getting into the 11th house. It's all to do with the sign of Aquarius and with the planet Uranus. Now, it's interesting, in ancient astrology, before the outer planets were discovered, Aquarius and the 11th house were actually ruled by the planet Saturn, which is the lord of karma. So it's interesting to see that there is this karmic nature connected with the 11th house and with Aquarius, but for conversation's sake, we're going to be looking at it from the perspective of modern astrology, which is Uranus. So if you have a lot of this Aquarian energy or 11th house energy in your chart, the name of the game for you is innovation. Okay, it's all to do with forward thinking, futuristic thinking. When you were young, you could have even been labeled as eccentric, okay, or a little bit out there. Maybe you always felt like you didn't fit in, but this is because of the fact that Aquarius as a sign tends to be 10 to 15 years ahead of their time. Okay, so this is because of the fact that they're given this gift of seeing the future, okay, in the sense of innovation, and it can come so naturally to you that you are actually not able to see or know that this is something that is a futuristic idea. Because what tends to happen is when we have these things that are very natural to us, our gifts, we think that everybody else can do them and that everybody else is like us. But a lot of the time, if it is coming naturally to you, it's a gift, okay? And basically, you're either meant to act on it, it's a gift from the divine, okay, for you to act on it, to bring through this new idea or creation or whatever it is forward, trends, okay, or if you're not going to put it out there, to write it out, okay? So it's really important to get it out of your system so you can keep getting these new ideas flowing through you, okay? Because if you have an idea in your mind, you're constantly thinking about it and you're not really doing anything with it, then it's best to get it out, okay, out of your system so the next idea can come, okay? So huge crown chakra opening, okay, for the Aquarian energy. You're probably not even aware of it, okay? If you do hone in on this energy, you can really take it to your advantage. You know, probably you're gonna have ideas coming to you through meditation, maybe even dreams, maybe when you're just doing things that put you into a meditative state. So exercising, walking, anything that puts you into a meditative state, cooking even, you could get these ideas for these new creations, okay? And this can be in any realm. It depends on the rest of your chart to see where you're going to be bringing this innovation through. But again, it's really all about forward thinking innovations. They're also the philanthropists and the humanitarians of the zodiac. So really, if you have a lot of this 11th house energy in your chart, you know, you could really have this huge desire to basically push the collective forward. And if you don't have that desire, or maybe you're not even aware that you have that desire, these ideas and innovations do propel the collective forward. Okay, so some examples of things that are very Aquarian in nature are things like the internet. Okay, that's very Aquarian in nature because also Aquarius is all about connection and connecting large groups of people. So depending where you have this Aquarian energy in your chart, you could be someone who actually works on the internet. Let's say you have Jupiter, okay, in Aquarius or Jupiter in the 11th house, you could be working through the internet, through social media, in one way, shape, or form, okay, marketing, where you are connecting, okay, large groups of people together, okay, or you're bringing these large groups of people to you, okay, so that's Jupiter in the 11th house. So it really depends where you have this energy in your chart. Some shadow traits or aspects of this energy could be that you get stuck in your head, okay, you don't really, like I said, get these ideas forward. So you could get stuck, you could get stagnant, where you are maybe constantly thinking about this, or you know, maybe thinking it's not going to be accepted. A lot of the time, like I mentioned, when you were young, you could have been labeled as eccentric. You probably felt like you didn't fit in because of the fact that you were forward thinking and you were very futuristic. So it's really, really important if you have this energy in your chart to find an outlet, okay, an outlet for your ideas. Okay, if you're not sharing them with the world, then you can just write them down. Okay, you don't have to share every single thing that does come through to you with the world. But again, you know, the Aquarian energy really is about pushing ideas forward. So it could even be, you know, the way you express yourself, the way that you dress, it could be different. It could be a new trend. Now, what's interesting is Aquarius is very gifted in putting trends forward, but they don't want to be put into the group. Okay, so this is something what's interesting with Aquarius. They do like to be set aside from the group. They want to be unique in one way, shape, or form. I do find that also to be natural human traits. But with Aquarius, especially, if they were someone who started something first, okay, or if they were someone who thought of a new idea or an innovation, basically what has to happen with the Aquarian energy or the 11th house energies, they want to set themselves apart from that. So they never want to be labeled with the group, okay? So they don't want to be like, okay, everyone's doing it now. So by the time everyone starts doing it, Aquarius is already on to the next thing that is going to be the next idea or the next thing forward. So people with a lot of this Aquarian energy, you know, they really are able to see the future trends of things, okay? So they could see maybe what stocks, okay, could be very beneficial for them. Crypto, NFTs, all these sorts of things. That's very Aquarian. SpaceX, okay? All of these things to do with, again, very futuristic ideas. It's also with technology also, okay? Because again, technology connects us. So that's very Aquarian in nature. But again, using it in the light version or in the light aspect of how can we propel humanity forward instead of take advantage of people in one way, shape, or form. So really important, if you have a lot of this Aquarian energy, again, to get it out of your system in whatever way, shape, or form you can, whether that is, again, through writing, through journaling, through actually broadcasting it in one way, shape, or form. But this is the thing with the Aquarian energy. So the Aquarian energy is very innovative. They're very futuristic. They're very big thinkers, okay? So some shadow traits of Aquarius could be that, again, you get stuck in your head because it's an air sign. Air sign is also to do with the mind. It's also to do with intellect. So again, and also they are the almost the last sign. So they're the 11th house. So they have all of this wisdom and knowledge within them. If you look at it from like the air signs, they're technically the most wise air sign, okay? Because they do have the preceding knowledge of the preceding signs. Now, what's interesting is that Libra and Gemini as air signs do tend to be very indecisive, very much back and forth. Aquarius isn't like this, okay? I don't find Aquarius to be indecisive like the other air signs, but they still might get stuck in their minds. They might doubt themselves. So a huge thing for them to work through is, again, their identity and being confident in who they are, and to just start putting these things out there, okay, whatever these things are, and not really care what other people think or what other people have to say, because the Aquarius energy is meant to be set apart. They're meant to be set apart from everybody. And again, you could have felt not understood, okay, a lot of the time, especially when you were growing up. You could have had these great ideas of, again, human connection and how humans can, be kind and all these sorts of things and be connected and, all these ideas, okay? And maybe it wasn't the time for them then, okay? But it's like you're ahead of the collective is really the energy with Aquarius. You do tend to be very ahead of your time. You tend to be ahead of the collective. You tend to pick up on things, okay? Because again, it's the crown chakra. So the crown chakra is able to pick up on things in the astral plane before other people pick up on it. And, it's interesting because, this energy really does give an energy of a little bit of out of body a lot of the time. Okay. So a lot of these spiritual signs, I do find that they start from Scorpio onwards. They do tend to be a little bit more out of their body. They're operating more on the astral plane, and the astral plane is where thought is. Okay. So this is really what Aquarius is. They have a lot of these ideas. They can tend to be very futuristic. But it's really important for you to start to put those things out there. Okay. It can even be trends. It can even be a new way of cooking something or a restaurant. Okay. It can be a grounded experience. It doesn't necessarily just have to be, I would call this super crowny, okay, where it's like talking about like the way the future can be, and like all of these things that we can all do together, right? It can be, that can be, okay, because they're humanitarian. It can be an aspect of Aquarius, but Aquarius can also, again, just bring their Aquarian touches to whatever industry that they're in. Okay, let's say again, like you're in the restaurant industry, maybe you're a cook, maybe you are in the fashion industry. You think of a new like fashion trend, a lot of the time models tend to be very Aquarian energy, even in their features. It's very Aquarian energy. It's very out of this world. Okay, so again, it's anything to do with things that are abstract in a way, things that are unconventional. So this is another huge thing with Aquarius too. They're an unconventional sign. So let's say you have Venus in Aquarius, or you have Venus in the 11th house. So you're going to be very unconventional when it comes to relationships. You probably aren't going to want to stick to the everyday, maybe monogamous relationship. Maybe you could be someone who's into very different things. Okay, so you can actually see these on people's charts. Okay, so people who are unconventional when it comes to relationships or have an unconventional approach, maybe they're not, they're definitely not going to be people who are traditional, again, because they're futuristic, they're forward thinking. Okay, so anything to do with tradition, anything to do with things, everything that's already been said and done. Aquarius isn't about that. They're all about bringing new things forward and bringing new ideas forward. And even, let's say, again, if it is in Venus, it's going to be a new way that people look at relationships. Okay, this is a huge thing for Aquarius. It will be a new way that people look at relationships. And it's interesting because, again, it's going to be, it's going to come naturally to them. This is a huge thing. It's going to come naturally to them. So it's important to allow themselves to express themselves. What's interesting is, let's say you have an Aquarian moon, because the moon is connected to the mother. A lot of the time the Aquarian moon does look for a mother who is unconventional or wants someone to accept the unconventions about them, but you get the opposite. Okay, you tend to get the opposite of that because that's karma that you have to work through. Because again, the thing is, whatever area in your life that you have the most amount of either resistance to or most amount of challenges with is actually the area you're meant to be doing. So let's say you do have a hard time expressing yourself in an unconventional way or a non-traditional way, or bringing through these ideas that are futuristic and very forward thinking, if you do have this issue or block, okay, internal blockage, is like this the exact thing that you're meant to work through because it's encompassed in your life's purpose at this particular time. So a really interesting sign. They're very unconventional. They're going to be very different. They're going to be sometimes labeled as quirky. They're going to be labeled as, but again, you'll be saying to yourself in the future, maybe you had an Aquarian friend or someone who had a lot of this 11th house energy in their chart, then you'll be saying to yourself, and you'll be like, wow, that person picked up on that like years ago, or you picked up on that trend years ago, or whatever it is. Because also what's interesting is that ideas are always floating in the astral plane. Okay, we talked a lot about the astral plane today, which is all to do with thought. So these ideas are always floating around, and it's a matter of who grasps them. So sometimes, let's say it's given to you, because any idea that comes through is channeled from the divine. Okay, it is channeled from the divine. So let's say it's given to you for you to basically act on it. If you don't, if you don't act on it, it gets passed on to the next person. So the thing is, it's important to understand that whenever there's something that's meant to propel the collective forward, it's always going to be floating in the astral, and it comes from the other side. So a huge thing is to understand that it doesn't matter who gets this idea. The whole important aspect of it is that this idea gets put out there. So either it's given to you to act on it, and if you don't, then it gets pushed to the next person. So again, maybe you had an idea a long time ago, like 10-15 years ago, and now it's been put into action by someone. You're like, hey, I had that same idea. Well, that's why. Okay, that's why, because it's like that idea had to come out there because it was meant to propel the collective forward. And if you didn't act on it, it gets pushed to the next person to act on it, because it's important. Okay, so this is something important to keep in mind. A lot of the time, again, if you have a lot of Aquarian energy in your chart, you could be interested in things like ETs, out of world energies. But all these sorts of things like ETs and all these sorts of things, I look at them as dimensional. Okay, so it's all about the different dimensions. And again, if it's something that's from a higher dimension or higher vibrational, basically, like, it's coming from a higher vibration because it's meant to be put out there to the collective to raise the vibration of the collective. Okay, so I know it's a little bit of a different way of looking at things and thinking, but this is really what Aquarius is all about. Aquarius is about the unconventional things. It's all about things that are not the norm. Okay, they're going to be different, they're going to be quirky, they're going to be very unique, they're going to be their own person. You'll see this in the way that they dress, in the way that they speak, and the way that they present themselves. And if you do get super comfortable around someone who does have a lot of 11th house or Aquarian energy in their chart, they can really go into the crown. Okay, they can really go into the crown. Like, they're going to, if they open up and they start talking about these things, they're going to have a lot of knowledge and wisdom, especially about things that are not of this plane. Okay, of this plane that we're currently in. They're going to be things that are very futuristic. Okay, so again, a lot of inventors have had a lot of this energy in their chart, and I wouldn't be surprised. People like, let's say, Nikola Tesla, I'm not sure what his natal chart is, but he is someone who had a lot of this Aquarian energy about him. So maybe he had a lot of 11th house, or maybe he had a lot of Aquarius in his chart, but that's just an example of someone who was forward thinking. Okay, so he thought of things with electricity and energy and all these sorts of things like so long ago, right? And like a lot of his inventions are coming out now. So think about how forward thinking and futuristic you had to have been, that even like during the time that he lived in, people still weren't really adapting the things that he had thought of. Okay, so this is just an example, just to kind of open up your minds of the way the Aquarian energy works. It's very forward thinking, it's very futuristic, and a lot of the time, it's interesting because they're not like the 12th house where they thrive in isolation, but because they're different, they might find themselves in situations where they are isolated. But again, they're meant to connect people. That's the ultimate end goal with the Aquarian 11th house energy, is that they're meant to connect people. Okay, they're meant to connect people in whatever way, shape, or form that is, whether that is going to networking events and all these people. And one huge thing that I forgot to mention also is that the Aquarius energy also bounces off of Leo. Okay, so we have these oppositions in natal charts and, in zodiac charts, like in charts, and we have these oppositions. So Leo and Aquarius do bounce off of each other. And because of the fact that they bounce off of each other, Aquarius is creative, but in an innovative sense. So Leo is all about being seen, okay? And I'll make a separate video where I go more in depth in this, but Aquarius is seen without trying in a way, if that makes sense. So you'll see maybe even a lot of actors, okay? I've seen actually sometimes they do tend to have Aquarius energy in their chart. Basically, this energy is somehow, if you have a lot of 11th house or Aquarius in your chart, is going to somehow put you in the public eye, because you can almost look at it as a karmic responsibility of working with the public in one way, shape, or form. And, you know, if you're just kind of sticking to your path and you're just doing what you're passionate about, and maybe that passion is innovation and putting new ideas forward, that is going to somewhat put you in the public eye, because it's like, it's meant to help the greater collective, it's meant to help people, it's meant to help again, the collective propel forward and push forward. That's the most important thing to understand with this Aquarian energy. So it's interesting because it's a sign that you wouldn't think ends up in the public eye, but they do, okay? And it comes more so from this innovation perspective, okay? So I'm going to wrap up the video there. I do hope that you guys did enjoy it. If you did, please do like, share, and subscribe. You guys can let me know in the comments below. I'm fighting with the sun here, and I hope you all have a beautiful rest of the day.